silence a soldier, led to humanity's first true contact with an ancient alien race. On a lifeless planet at the edge of known space, one man uncovered a secret buried for thousands of years, something intelligent, something watching, and something ready to speak. This isn't just a story about survival. It's about discovery, connection, and the moment when silence gives way to first contact. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and show a little love with a thumbs up by liking the video. Now let's move toward this wonderful and unforgettable story. Lieutenant Merrick Halden had never been good at keeping his mouth shut. In a military that rewarded obedience more than ideas, that had always been a problem. So when he called out a superior officer for what he believed was a reckless decision that cost lives, he didn't get a medal. He got reassigned. Not to a war zone or a critical post, but to a rock in the middle of nowhere, Hesperon 9. The official term was Planetary Perimeter Assignment. Marek called it what it really was: exile. As he sat strapped into the shuttle, the view outside turned from stars to rust-colored clouds. The planet was even uglier than the file photos. A reddish-brown wasteland stretched beneath him, with jagged cliffs and no sign of water, vegetation, or anything remotely interesting. It looked like someone had taken the worst parts of Mars and left them baking under two suns. The pilot, a bored-looking woman named Ray, smirked as they hit turbulence. "Welcome to the end of the galaxy," she said without turning around. "Try not to go crazy." The shuttle landed with a thud that rattled Marek's teeth. He stepped out into thin, processed air, the wind scratching across his helmet like static. The sky was a washed-out amber, and the gravity made his steps feel clumsy and too light. His equipment package had already been dropped earlier: 4 standard modules for shelter, supplies, comms, and life support. The military always made sure their outcasts had just enough to survive, but not much more. Merrick got to work. He unpacked the hexagonal shelter modules and arranged them into a small camp. Everything clicked together with magnetic locks and hissed with pressurized seals. It took nearly 6 hours to get it all functional. As he finished, the smaller of the planet's twin suns dipped below the horizon, casting long, eerie shadows across the cracked surface. The larger sun still hung low in the sky like a glowing eye, always watching. Standing outside his shelter, Marek looked around and muttered, 6 months on a dead rock. Great. He walked the perimeter, his boots kicking up red dust until something caught his eye. Just beyond a rocky ledge, he thought he saw movement, quick like a flicker. He froze. The mission briefing had been very clear. Hesperon 9 was lifeless. No animals, no plants, not even bacteria. Yet something had just moved. He drew his sidearm, a standard issue pulse pistol, and approached the ledge. "Hello?" He called out, instantly feeling ridiculous. Only silence answered him. Dust whispered in the wind and a few pebbles tumbled from the rocks. He looked around for tracks but found none, just his own, circling back toward the shelter. He shook his head. Maybe it was his imagination, or maybe the planet's low gravity and isolation were already playing tricks on him. That night, Marek logged his first report. Base camp established. No threats detected. Atmosphere stable. Terrain boring. He hesitated, then added, "Possible movement observed near outcropping. No physical evidence. Could be fatigue." He hovered over the send button for a moment before pressing it. The report vanished into the system, off to some command center that wouldn't care. Sleep didn't come easily. The hum of the air filters was steady, but every now and then it shifted pitch just slightly, like a whisper in the walls. He rolled over, stared at the metal ceiling, and tried to forget the strange feeling gnawing at his mind, that he wasn't alone. Day 2 passed in a haze of routine. System checks, perimeter walks, eating rehydrated meals that tasted like cardboard pretending to be food. He activated the communications array and set it to scan for transmissions, though he knew it wouldn't find anything. Not out here. On the third day, While checking a ridge to the east, he noticed something new. A tall, jagged rock stood where flat ground had been before. He frowned and pulled up his wrist display, which showed terrain scans from day 1. According to the map, the ridge should be empty, but the spire was real. 3 meters tall, black as coal, and shaped like a broken knife. He walked around it, cautiously, his scanner in hand. The rock's surface was rough and sharp except for one side. There, embedded in the stone, was a smooth, matte black rectangle. Small, about the size of a book. Marek blinked. The scanner showed nothing. No readings, no mass, no heat signature, no indication that it even existed. But he could see it. He could touch it if he dared. His training screamed at him not to make contact with unknown objects. But curiosity was louder. He took photos instead, high-resolution ones, and backed away. Later that night, he reviewed the images. The photos showed the rectangle clearly, but the system flagged them as visual distortion. It didn't make sense. He logged another entry. Strange structure located northeast of camp. Embedded object present. Scanner unable to confirm material. Existence. Visual evidence attached. Will continue monitoring. As he sent the update, the communications array let out a sudden beep. A signal. Weak. Rhythmic. Coming from beneath his feet. Marek stared at the screen. The signal pulsed steadily, like a heartbeat. He switched channels. Nothing. Switched back. Still there. A beat. Then another. Measured. Intentional. He leaned back in his chair, heart pounding. Hesperon 9 wasn't dead. It was waiting. Marek Halden didn't sleep that night, not even for a second. The signal from beneath the ground continued its soft, steady beat like the ticking of some buried clock. He sat hunched over the console in his operations module, eyes locked on the waveform that pulsed across the screen. It never changed. Always the same rhythm. One pulse every 47 seconds. That number repeated in his mind like an echo. He didn't know if it meant something, but it didn't feel random. Random things didn't come from empty planets. As morning came, if you could call it that, on Hesperon 9, Marek finally leaned back, rubbing his tired eyes. The sky outside had shifted slightly, now a pale yellow instead of amber. But the silence was the same. Cold. Heavy. He ate a tasteless meal bar, drank a pouch of water, and returned to the signal. Still pulsing. Still there. He knew he needed help, or at least someone to talk to who wasn't a rock. So he broke protocol, just a little. He opened a secure comm link and routed a message through an old backdoor channel he'd once used during recon drills. The only person who would hear it was Corporal Ina Vell, a systems technician he'd worked with back at headquarters. She was sharp, sarcastic, and most importantly, she owed him a favor. The message was short. Ina. Need analysis. Signal buried. Under Hesperon 9. Patterned. 47-second interval. Sending data. Halden. Marek didn't expect an immediate response. But less than an hour later, a ping appeared on the screen. It was her. The text popped up in the corner. Hey, Halden. What rock have you crawled onto this time? Got the signal. Looks weird. Definitely structured. We'll run deeper scans. Stay alive. A flicker of relief passed through him. At least someone believed him, or was curious enough to look. He stepped outside the shelter and began walking toward the strange rock formation he had found the day before. The air was thin but breathable thanks to the processors, though everything still tasted like metal. The spire stood tall and silent, casting a long shadow. Marek circled it slowly. The black rectangle was still there, completely still, completely quiet. He pulled out a portable sensor unit and tried scanning the base of the rock. Again, nothing. No heat, no mass, no electromagnetic reading. But when he reached out and hovered, his hand near it, his skin tingled even through the suit. He backed away, heart thumping. He didn't return to camp right away. Instead, he wandered farther out than he normally would, needing to move, to think. About 200 meters east of the rock. He stopped. In the dust ahead of him, a new pattern caught his eye. It looked like footprints, but not human. Each print was a triangle with a deep central depression, and they came in pairs, perfectly spaced, something bipedal, but definitely not like anything Marek had seen. He crouched beside the tracks, scanning again. Still nothing. Just dust, according to the equipment. But the prints were real. He followed them a short distance before they vanished near another smaller ridge. Nothing else in sight. Back at camp, Marek uploaded photos of the tracks and recorded his second log entry of the week. Day 3. Confirmed unknown movement on surface. Prints not matching human, animal, or known bot. Visual evidence attached. Signal from beneath base still active. Possible link to subterranean source requesting continued monitoring and analysis. Just as he finished speaking, the signal changed. The pulses came faster, still spaced evenly, but now every 30 seconds. He stared at the monitor, unsure what to feel. Fear. Curiosity. Both fought for control. Then the signal vanished. No sound, no pulse. Just flat silence on the screen. Marek leaned closer, tapping the controls, checking for malfunction. Everything was working. It had simply stopped. He sat there for a long time, waiting. 10 minutes passed. Nothing. 20. Still nothing. Then, just as suddenly it returned, but this time it was different. The pulse had layers like music with harmonies. A bass rhythm with smaller clicks and tones woven in. Not noise, a pattern, a message. He barely breathed as the sound filled the operations module, echoing softly like underwater sonar. He hit record, sending the entire stream to Ina, along with a simple message: "This is new. Tell me it's not just my imagination." Her reply came back within 15 minutes. "Not your imagination, this is language or something close, repeating symbols, timed structure. It's not natural. Halden, where the hell are you?" Marek stared at the signal. All the reports had said Hesperon 9 was dead. Not just empty, dead. But something down there was alive, and aware of him. As the larger sun dipped lower in the sky, casting sharp shadows over the camp, Marek checked the shelter's seals. He didn't know if whatever was down there could get through steel and airlocks, but he wasn't going to take chances. The wind had picked up outside, swirling dust in strange circular patterns. Patterns like the one he'd seen near the footprints. That night he updated his log. Day 3 continued. Subterranean signal has evolved. Pattern appears intelligent. Possible attempt at communication. I believe I'm being watched. Request instructions. But deep down, Marek knew there were no instructions for this. No one had expected anything on this planet. No one except maybe whatever was underneath it. And now, it had noticed him. The next morning came slowly. Marek Halden sat at the edge of his bunk, staring at the floor, boots on but not moving. The signal had continued through the night, calm again, with its steady pulse and strange inner tones. It almost sounded alive, like a breath, rising and falling beneath the surface of the world. He hadn't slept, not really. His body was still, but his mind had been running in circles, playing the sound over and over. Just after dawn, if such a word applied to the strange twin suns of Hesperon 9, the sky outside turned a pale orange. Marek stepped outside the shelter and paused. The dust near the corner of the module had shifted again. The wind hadn't done it. There wasn't enough to move the surface like this. No, the pattern was too clean, too circular, like something had pushed upward from beneath. He knelt down and saw it clearly this time. A small mound, only a few centimeters high, formed perfectly at the center of the pattern. He backed away quickly, hand on the pulse pistol at his side. He watched it for a long minute. Nothing moved. The dust was still. Then, as if deciding something, Marek slowly holstered the weapon and took a cautious step forward. As he did, the mound flattened. Another step, and the dust scattered, revealing a hole, small, round, about the size of a coin. He froze. And then, something came out. It was fast, no bigger than his thumb, a shimmer of blue and green and metallic light. It had legs, many of them, jointed and precise, and it skittered across the surface with incredible speed. Marek barely got a glimpse before it vanished behind a rock. His heart pounded. There was life here. Real life. Not a glitch. Not a hallucination. Something small and fast and very much alive had just crawled out of the planet and disappeared into the dust. Back inside, he updated his log immediately. Day 4. Observed small life form exiting ground near shelter. Blue-green body. Fast, jointed limbs. Movement intelligent. Tunnel confirmed. Signal continues. He attached everything. Photos, signal recordings, even a shaky video clip he managed to catch. Then he sent it off with high priority. A few minutes later, a response came through from command. Short. Cold. Continue observation. Do not engage. Reinforcement equipment inbound. Arrival in 36 hours. Maintain current position. Reinforcement. Equipment. Not rescue. Not science team. Equipment. That wasn't encouraging. Later that day, as Marek walked the outer edge of his camp, he spotted a figure approaching from the south ridge. For a split second, his heart jumped. Something humanoid. Another creature? But no, it was a person, walking in a sealed environment suit carrying a pack that looked far too heavy. As they got closer, they raised a hand in greeting. Marek Halden? The figure called over the short-range comm. Name's Eldon Trell, Field Research Division. Guess they decided to send someone after all. Marek blinked. You're early. They figured 2 heads are better than 1 if something's trying to dig up under your tent. Eldon was younger than Marek expected. Calm, focused, but with a slight grin that made it clear he wasn't easily shaken. He dropped his pack, unpacked a flat scanner the size of a dinner tray, and began setting up. I got the signal. Saw your recordings. That thing that popped up, it's not just alive, it's intelligent. Together they reviewed the data again. Eldon pulled up a new scan from a more powerful sensor. The map that appeared on the screen made Marek's skin crawl. Beneath their base was a web of tunnels. Wide, complex, branching out in every direction. Chambers filled with movement. Hundreds of signals pulsing like a heartbeat. This isn't a burrow or a nest, Eldon said softly. It's a city. That night, Marek and Eldon sat in the operations module listening to the signal. It was louder now, clearer. Marek had rigged an audio output to translate it into sound waves they could hear. The pulses echoed through the room like music. Eldon stared at the display. It's talking to us, he said. It's been talking to us. We just didn't know how to listen. Just before dawn on the 5th day, the camp's motion sensors lit up. Marek jumped from his bunk and ran to the observation port. In the distance, moving toward the base, was a group of creatures. 7 in total, arranged in a perfect V formation. The same shimmer of color, blue and green with flashes of gold. At the front, the lead creature carried something that glinted in the rising sunlight. They stopped about 10 meters from the camp and laid the object gently on the ground. Then, they backed away. Marek and Eldon suited up. Neither said a word as they stepped outside into the quiet. The creatures didn't move. Marek approached slowly, every muscle in his body tense, but they showed no fear, just a soft, swaying motion, like leaves in the wind. The object was a pyramid, small, glowing faintly, warm to the touch even through Marek's gloves. As he picked it up, the pulses from underground changed again. Faster, brighter, more complex. The pyramid lit up in response. He turned back to Eldon, his voice low. They're not warning us. No, Eldon replied, eyes wide with wonder. They're welcoming us. The pyramid pulsed in Marek Halden's hands like a heartbeat, steady and warm, its amber glow casting soft light across his gloves. He stood in silence, surrounded by creatures that, just days ago, he didn't believe could exist. The Serari, as he and Eldon had started calling them, watched without fear, their delicate bodies swaying gently. Marek wasn't sure what he expected from first contact with an alien species, But this quiet mutual curiosity wasn't it. It felt peaceful. Back inside the shelter, Eldon quickly connected the pyramid to the base's translator system. As soon as the link was established, the data flow exploded. Symbols scrolled across the display. The pyramid was more than just a message. It was a bridge. The translation matrix began to work faster than ever, processing the layered signals Merrick had been recording for days. Within an hour, patterns began to emerge. Simple structures, repeated sequences, what looked like linguistic scaffolding. They were trying to talk, and they had been from the start. By mid-morning, the camp's sensors lit up again. This time, it wasn't the Sorari. A shadow moved above the ridge, an incoming shuttle. Merrick recognized the model immediately. Command had arrived. The landing was precise, efficient. The rear hatch opened with a hiss and a small team emerged. Leading them was Commander Hestia Marlowe, known throughout the force for being sharp, cold, and absolutely by the book. Her eyes met Merrick's with a cool, measuring look. "Lieutenant Halden," she said without preamble, "you've caused quite the stir." Merrick didn't reply right away. Instead, he gestured to the screen behind him, where the translation matrix was still decoding the signal. "They're not a threat," he said quietly. "They're a civilization, ancient, hidden, and they're trying to communicate." Commander Marlowe stepped into the operations module and studied the screen, her face unreadable. "My orders are to assess the situation and deploy countermeasures if necessary," she said. Initial reports described potential bioactivity. No confirmation of sentience. "They are sentient," Eldon cut in. "We've seen their tunnels, their technology. That pyramid they gave us, it's broadcasting structured language. This is first contact." Hestia frowned. "We have no protocol for peaceful contact on a dead zone planet, and the Araxians already claim this territory. If there's intelligent life, this becomes a treaty violation. One they won't ignore." Merrick stepped forward. "Then let them come. Let them see what's really here. The Sorari have lived beneath this surface for longer than any of us have been flying ships. They survived whatever happened on this world, and they stayed hidden. Not because they were scared, because they were waiting." Marlowe studied him. "And they chose you?" "They gave me their voice," he said, holding up the pyramid. "They asked for a speaker, someone to represent them." There was a long silence. Then, as if on cue, the signal from beneath the camp shifted again. The pulsing tone slowed and deepened, followed by a new sequence. Short bursts, repeating rhythm, rising in pitch. The translator hesitated, then displayed 3 words on the screen. "Invite, speak, peace." Marlowe looked at the message, then back at Merrick. "You're certain they're peaceful?" "I'm certain they want understanding more than conflict," Marek said. An hour later, Marek stood outside the shelter once again, this time in formal uniform and helmet, not to protect from danger, but as a sign of respect. The Sorari returned in numbers, dozens, maybe 100, emerging from openings, in the ground like petals blooming at sunrise. At the center of the procession stood a larger figure, its shell shimmering with gold and sapphire light. It carried another pyramid, slightly larger than the first. It placed it gently at Marek's feet. The new device activated instantly, creating a holographic map above its surface, an underground city, vast and sprawling with towers, bridges, and crystalline chambers deep beneath the surface. It rotated slowly, alive with motion. Tiny signals marked locations across the planet. The Sorari weren't just here. They were everywhere, hidden in the crust, watching and waiting. The translation matrix pulsed again. A sentence formed on the screen. "We remember the sky, we remember you." Merrick blinked. "What does that mean?" Eldon looked up from the console. "I think they knew humans before, or something like us, maybe long before we left Earth." That night, Merrick recorded his final log from the outpost. Day 6. First contact fully confirmed. The Sorari are intelligent, peaceful, and highly advanced. They have chosen to open communication through symbols and shared language. They remember a time when our kind walked the stars beside them. And now they've chosen to begin again. A delegation will be formed. Diplomats are en route. The Araxians will protest. But the truth can't be ignored anymore. We're not alone, and maybe we never were. Weeks later, what had been a lonely outpost turned into a research hub. Tents gave way to structures, scientists replaced soldiers, and every day brought new discoveries. Commander Marlowe stayed longer than expected, her role shifting from enforcer to protector. The Sorari began to surface more often, slowly learning, slowly sharing. Marek often stood at the edge of the ridge at night, watching the glowing lights of the outpost blend with the twinkling stars above. The sky looked the same, but nothing was like before. The Sorari had taught him something no academy ever could. That, sometimes the most powerful truths live in silence, waiting for someone to finally listen. And Marek Halden, once punished and forgotten, had become the voice of a people long buried and newly remembered.